My name is Lorna Matern, and I'm the Executive Director of United Hospital Service. Welcome to staff, clients, community members, and board members. We are very pleased that you're able to join us this morning. Welcome to our honored guests, Senators Brian Campion and Dick Sears, Tim Corcoran, Jim Carroll, Dave Durfee, Mary Morrissey, and Nelson Brownell. Thank you for coming this morning. Since 1958, UCS has been living its mission of building a stronger community, empowering individuals and families to live healthy and meaningful lives. We provide a comprehensive system of care for children, families, and individuals living with mental illness, intellectual disability, or substance use disorder. We provide services to the most vulnerable of our citizens, whether through our Head Start, early Head Start programs, our group homes that provide needed 24/7 support, or our crisis services for those with a mental health issue that need immediate intervention in the community. We provide services through our 5 major service divisions: outpatient and substance abuse, developmental services, community rehabilitation and treatment, Head Start, early Head Start, and youth and family services, developmental services. I feel like I missed that. Did I miss that? Oh, good.
Second.
See, it's so great I have to say it twice. Staff work within our 16 locations throughout Bennington County, including 4 group homes and a hospital diversion program that are staffed 24/7. UCS employs 290 staff who provide around-the-clock care. Of course, those who provide care could not do so without the support of our administrative divisions of finance, facilities, IT, operations, human resources, and community relations. We are a great place to work and a great place to get care. UCS is one of the first designated agencies to earn a 3-year certification as a Center of Excellence through a process developed by Vermont Care Partners and the Jeffords Institute. The Center of Excellence is an organization that provides access to high-value, comprehensive, whole-person care with excellent outcomes and world-class customer service. As a Center of Excellence, we are to provide the right care in the right setting with the right provider at the right time. However, we recognize that meeting the standard of the right time has been difficult, if not impossible. Nationally, only 43% of people living with mental illness receive treatment for their condition, and only 12% of Americans with a substance use disorder receive specialty care in any given year. Despite this, people are seeking services more now than ever. People understand that prevention works, treatment is effective, and recovery is possible. The stigma of getting services is starting to fade. Chuck Ingolius, CEO of the National Council for Behavioral Health and Substance Use, stated in his opening remarks on Hill Day in 2019, the lack of access to timely, high-quality treatment has replaced stigma as the largest barrier to those in need of mental health and addiction treatment services, and we couldn't agree more. And so UCS embarked on a year-long transformation of making easy access to care our priority. I'd like to highlight just a few of those areas this morning to give you a sense of what we've accomplished and the impact it has had on our services, as well as some challenges that we're looking at dealing with ahead. UCS and Southwestern Vermont Medical Center identified a need to address the increased rate of emergency department utilization by individuals who need mental health services. Mental health professionals have long known that it is more effective and far less traumatic to keep people who are in the midst of a mental health crisis out of the places they too often end up, hospital emergency departments. Crisis intervention can be more traumatic than the original condition in crisis service constrained emergency departments. Most concerning to UCS and SVMC was the rising number of children who presented in ED after being transported from school by local law enforcement. The experience of being removed from the classroom due to disruptive behavior, often by law enforcement, being transported to, and the arrival, evaluation, and stay in the ED is traumatizing to children. And sending children to the ED is often unnecessary. Of those children who were assessed in the emergency department, 82% of those went home, often without a treatment plan. Imagine if they didn't go to the ED in the first place. They needed access to the right care in the right place, and so we created it, along with our partners at SBMC. We created PUC, Psychiatric Urgent Care for Kids. Through a grant, an innovation grant awarded by One Care Vermont, PUC is a child and family-centered, recovery-oriented, trauma-informed approach that is designed to keep children out of the emergency department while providing a therapeutic environment that offers the right level of care. I'd like to bring up Kaya Ganguly, who is from the Youth and Family Services, to talk more about PUC. Where's Kayla? Yeah, I saw her. Okay. Come on up, Kaya.
Good morning. Morning. So, PUC arose from a dream that Lorna and Jill Maynard from the hospital had. They read an article that talked about an urgent care for kids based in a city that was connected to a hospital. And they used their imagination and said, well, couldn't we do this in a rural setting? And we said, yes, we could. What we did is, once we got the grant, is we worked together in a team to imagine what good care would look like for kids. We took over part of 314 Dewey across the street, and we transformed the building. Now we have a space that is warm, welcoming, friendly, and safe for kids and families. We have a main room where children can come and families can come. We can have master's level clinicians do assessments, do behavioral observations, talk with families, and try to see what are ways we can serve kids better. We have a sensory room for kids who need some space and time to calm down and actually focus on getting beyond where they're at so that they can actually access education and being at home safely. We have a quiet room because sometimes kids just need to lay down. They've had a very hectic day, they're dysregulated, and they just need some time. When kids come to PUC, they come through Family Emergency Services. Family Emergency Services will get a call, they'll go out to the school or the home, they'll make an assessment, and if they deem appropriate, we'll bring the child back to PUC. We can, with parent permission, even provide transportation. Once the child is there, they work with a master's level clinician, our care coordinator who have experiences with therapeutic case management, and community support workers. If they come from school, we try to bring schoolwork because that's usually where kids are having the issue. When they get challenged or they feel like they're not succeeding. So we can actually, in a safe and controlled environment, see what their triggers are and come up with interventions that can be used in the school and at home. We can access psychiatric consultation for medication for kids who are on meds if they're seeing issues. The psychiatric team will come down, they'll meet with parents, they'll talk with the kid, they'll consult with pediatricians. What we're really doing is providing wraparound care. And we're trying to find the best way to keep kids safe in the community, in the home, with positive interventions. I'm going to tell you a story, that's how I'm sort of going to end. So we had a parent who came to us. Her child was having difficulty. The school had been calling FES, Family Emergency Services. They went out, they did a determination, they picked the child up, brought the child back. In one day, the child got a master's level assessment, got some educational assessments on what was working, what was not, had a psychiatric consult for meds, and had an appointment made at Dartmouth for an autism screening. Was also intaked into UCS services for the first time, and assigned a worker and community support. This all happened in less than 6 hours. So that's the power of what we're trying to do at PUC. And that's a transformation that we're seeing. When we spoke with our first pilot school, one of the things that the principal, Donna Colley, said to me was every kid we had sent you would have gone to the ER. Thank you.
You know, one of the other things that Donna Call I remember saying when we were first planning this, was that when they send a kid to the ED, they also send a teacher or a nurse or herself, who's the principal, to the ED to sit with the child as well. So we're taking, putting educators back into the school rather than bringing them up to the ED for them to be sitting with a child that's in crisis. Jill, is there anything you want to say while you're sitting there? You don't have to. I just totally swung this out.
No, it's a really innovative solution to a problem, and it's really helped get the right care in the right place. All of that care coordination is not possible in the emergency department, and so that story that was just told, all of those things would not have been put into place so quickly. And so it really is changing the way that we deliver care.
Thank you. A consequence, if you will, of the increased need to have emergency clinicians in the emergency department was a decrease in our ability to provide mobile crisis services for our community. Accessing mobile crisis service is critical in keeping people out of the hospital. This year, we were able to place a clinician within the emergency department 7 days a week, while increasing our mobile crisis team to respond to those in crisis at home and in the community. As a result of these changes to our emergency services program and the creation of PUC, we have seen an overall reduction in ED utilization for mental health by 18%. There's been a 40% reduction in pediatric utilization of the emergency department since PUC opened in September. 40%, which is incredibly significant. We are certain those numbers will continue to improve, but we also know that we will need additional investment dollars to ensure the continued response to the growing need. Dr. Reeve, who's our medical director, is here and has been an integral part of both of those transformations, and I wonder if there's anything that you would like to talk about as well.
Nothing like not having prepared remarks.
Careful, everybody. Pick on anybody.
And Laura always likes to have something new and surprising her. But what I guess I would stress that you haven't said so much is our ability to go and be in the community would not be possible without this really good collaboration with SVMC, the emergency room staff, as well as the hospital, as well as the police in the community. Just last night, we again had to go to one of our clients in the community who has not been taking medications and help this person to the emergency room because they're in such bad shape. And the police and emergency responders were the ones who helped our crisis worker bring this man in safely without injury. And it was the docs in the emergency room who gave him the right medication so he at least gets some sleep before we can evaluate him. So I just want to stress, yes, it's really important for us to be in the community and to keep a lot of people out. It's also important to bring the correct people in to get access to care and to have discussions. We've had some really, really complicated patients in the hospital that we've had to move out, or in the community we've had to bring in. And it's just constant dialogue and thinking about all of the facets that would provide comprehensive, ethical, kind treatment to people that's appropriate for what they need, rather than simply labeling them for having an illness or being intoxicated, but actually seeing the person under there, the person who is a member of the community that we live with, that we want them to be able to still look in our eyes the next day without shame and ask for help when they need it. So that's what is unique about being here.
We know that when a person experiences easy access to the right care at the right time, they have hope and they are more likely to engage. We have seen this time and time again by our high no-show rates for scheduled intake appointments. Often we were scheduling intakes weeks, if not months, after a person called for help, resulting in a no-show rate of 50%. We had to do something different, and so on October 2nd, we implemented same-day access. Same-day access means that anyone seeking service can walk into UCS and see a clinician right away. No appointment necessary. In fact, we no longer take appointments for intakes. Just come on in. And as a result, we have seen 174 people walk in, complete an intake, and leave with a scheduled appointment for their next session. Of those, 71% are engaging in treatment. Our goal is to schedule our first treatment session within 14 days of their intake. As of December 31st, 49% are scheduled within 14 days. So we have some work to do there. The average number of days is 12. So there's obviously some that are far out and some that are really close in, but we want 100% of the people to be seen for their next appointment within 14 days. And UCS is the only designated agency in Vermont that has a fully implemented same-day access program for mental health and substance use. We've also streamlined our process for psychiatric care for more timely access to psychiatry. 6 months ago, we had 90 individuals on a wait list to see the psychiatrist with an approximate wait time of 6 months. In the last 6 months, we received 155 referrals for psychiatry. In making significant changes in our process, on average, people are scheduled out 59 days for their appointment, decreasing the wait time significantly. 59 days, sadly, is in line with the national average for wait time for psychiatry. And we currently do not have a wait list for psychiatry. The other thing that is really important too is ALIA and the other prescribers have increased their consultation with primary care providers who are often the ones that are medicating clients who need it. And so that also has decreased the need for coming in to see psychiatry because we're increasing our consultation. We partnered with Genoa Health and opened an on-site Genoa pharmacy last month. Folks we work with, and Alia just mentioned somebody who was not taking their medication and what it resulted in. The folks we work with often have a low adherence rate for taking medications as prescribed, typically about 44%, which of course results in greater ED utilization, increased crisis calls, and impedes recovery. Genoa Pharmacy, through coordination with prescribers, education and on-site access to medication, have an adherence rate of greater than 90%. Genoa is able to take the administrative burden of pre-authorization and packaging medications, which will free up our prescribers and nurses. I think this is a great partnership with Genoa. If anybody's interested after we close this morning, I'm happy to take you to check it out. But we're very excited to have them on site. Last year, I informed you of our newly created partnership with the town of Bennington and Head Start, Early Head Start. Undoubtedly, you have heard more about our new early and education. Undoubtedly, you have heard more about our early care and education center being built on the grounds of the rec center. If you've driven by there, you've also seen there's a lot of construction going on there. We know that creating this partnership provides access to high-quality care and education for children and families, and enhances access to health and wellness for the surrounding community. I've asked Betsy Rathman-Gunn, who came in just in the nick of time. School buses that took me in every time. And Tawana Anderson to please come up and talk more about Head Start, Early Head Start.
Great, thank you. They just get here in the nick of time. Thank you. And I'm really excited to be here. To talk with you and to have Tawana share with me a little bit about her life story. So, as Lorna was referencing, we are very excited about our new partnership with the town. You know, this is going to enable us to be able to serve 36 preschool children and another, yes, 24 infant and toddler kids. And that's the key point, because we know that Bennington is really in the point of thriving. And you can tell I ran here. So, you know, and one of those pieces is the Putnam Project that we know, and lots of other economic development that's going on. And in order to enhance and be able to support that economic development, we need good community services, right? And part of that is childcare and community, you know, places where the community can meet. So this facility will have 5 classrooms, a community site, a brand new, beautiful commercial kitchen, a brand new learning kitchen for the kids. I'm particularly very excited about that because we know it's important for kids to learn to cook and have good nutrition early on in life. And it will have a nice new community space that maybe next year we'll all be meeting there instead of here. So we are really excited about this project. This is a $4.5 million project funded through federal funds. That is really quite outstanding in this community. The Office of Head Start has been very, very generous with us in understanding, because this is a partnership with the town and the community, that they were willing to support this project. We consider it phase 1. We hope the town will consider phase 2, which will be another addition to this facility to be able to enhance all the different wellness and activity supports that we hope the rec center will continue to have. We are pleased that Beth Wallace, who is a longtime Benningtonian, will be our site manager for this facility, and we know it's going to make a big difference in our community. It really is. We know that all the services that we offer through mental health for kids, today's headline is over 3,000 infant, toddlers, and preschoolers get mental health in the state of Vermont. UCS's tagline is building a stronger community, and that's what this facility really represents. So the other piece of this is that we have Tawana here. Tawana represents all of this. She is a Benningtonian. She was, do you have your photo?
Oh,
Yeah, is the photo here?
yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
So weird walking around.
Right. We are very pleased that
One of three.
that she was on our Wall of Fame as a Head Start alumna. So we are very pleased that this one said that she was going to be a scientist. And we know that that's true, because being a good early childhood teacher is being a scientist. So she is also a parent in the program, has had a current child in the program, and has had a child graduate from the program. And she's part of our workforce development, which is the other big key part of economic development and good community development. She is going to school to become an early childhood teacher. So I'm very pleased to introduce Tawana.
Before I get rambling on, I just wanted to say thank you to United Counseling Service for giving me this platform and Head Start and Betsy for giving me this platform to be able to give back to a state and town and community that has given so much to me, that has helped me get to where I am now. It was a long journey. I know it's not over, but like Betsy said, I am a Head Start kid, and I don't remember much, 3, 4, and 5. But looking back at pictures in my photo album, I remember just looking so happy, and I always remember having that feeling of wanting to be a part of that. I wanted to do the same thing, be the people that were making me happy. I wanted to make the children in our community happy. I know what it takes from being from here, born and raised. So it's really not that hard. It's a tiring job, of course, but it's very easy for me to be there for the children. And also, I now work for a place that when I am down or tired or don't know what I can do to give myself that energy I need to keep giving back, I have people here. I work for people here that will say, hey, recognize that I need some time. This is offered, meditation, yoga, all kinds of things here are offered, and it's really cool to be from a place that is in my corner and work for a place that is also in my corner. So it's humbling, and I'm honored. So thank you.
understanding is that when you went for an interview, or maybe when you started your job at Head Start, you were walking down the hallway with all those pictures and you say, hey, that's me.
Yeah. I mean, I knew they were here, but I forgot. I had forgotten. And parents recognized me when I worked somewhere else, and they said, I know your face. Your face looks familiar. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know you. And then, you know, we got into the conversation. She had children, and then she said, oh, your picture's at Head Start. And I'm like, no, really? And so I went and I looked and I said, holy. And now my son thinks it's him, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We are proud of the work that we have done to overcome, or to work to overcome, access to care challenges in this past year, and know there are many more challenges to come. We must look to build a system of care for our aging population, respond to the rise in DS caseloads that have increased by 50% in the last 10 years, respond to the potential changes to the Brattleboro retreat, continue to respond to the need for addiction services, and stabilize our workforce. I'd like to take a moment to highlight one of the areas of our critical workforce that is often in crisis, as they are undervalued, underpaid, and often unseen. Our direct support professionals, or DSPs as they are known, are essential in providing care to individuals with intellectual disabilities in order for them to access typical lives, to work, live, and play in their own communities. It is estimated that 1 million more direct support professionals will be needed over the next 10 years. If you would please, Sam, focus your attention to the monitor for a very short clip from a documentary of Invaluable, which will give you a better understanding of the work that they do.
Many people find tremendous satisfaction and fulfillment in working as a DSP, but the job is demanding.
You're a house cleaner, you're a chef, you're making breakfast, you're the groomer, the shower, you're the hairstylist. It's almost like you're maintaining a house at the same time that you're providing help to a person.
Med administration can be a long process, so you have to concentrate. Someone's life depends on you doing the correct thing in the mornings. That's vital.
They're a nurse, they're a doctor, they're a therapist, they're a social worker.
It's beyond even social work. Like, we're wearing so many hats as direct support staff.
In addition to their other responsibilities, DSPs are expected to know and comply with a host of regulations and document pretty much every task they perform and every decision they make. Yet for all they do, direct support professionals are vastly underpaid, underappreciated, and increasingly hard to recruit and retain. Nearly 90% of DSPs are women, 1/4 were born outside of the United States, and 1 out of every 5 lives in poverty. Nearly half rely on public assistance just to support their own families.
The wages definitely don't reflect all that we do and the role that we play.
Thanks, Sam. Told you it was very short. It's a great documentary, invaluable. It really tells the story of direct service support.
Hi, I'm Leah LaFleur, and I'm running for Metro.
Interrupt this with a little commercial. I'd like to introduce you to a couple DSPs that are here. Actually, I think there are 2. One manages DSPs and one has been a DSP for quite a long time. So if you could stand and just say what your name is and why it is that you continue to do this work despite the low pay and the difficulty and challenge of the job.
Nadine Wisher, and I've been doing this for a very long time. And the reason that I do it is it's unconditional. The people that you serve really like you, respect you, enjoy being with you. And so it's really easy day after day. Like the clip said, it is underpaid by a lot for the amount of work that we actually do every single day. You are in charge of, and I don't want to say it like that, but some people need you for everything. Everything that they do, every place that they go, street safety, purchasing, just to go through their lives. But it's very, very rewarding to see somebody make a small stride in their life to independence and just enjoyment, just to see the simple joy of somebody accomplishing something or doing something for the first time. So that's why I do it.
Thanks, Nadine.
My name is Alicia Acevedo. I'm Program Manager for Community Support. I was in the program 15 years before becoming the Program Manager. I just come to work every day. Every day is different. Every day is refreshing, and you just go home. You may be exhausted, but mentally and like wholeheartedly just fulfilled. If you look around the room here, there's artwork everywhere. Came from our department. We have 2 of our staff really enjoy art, and they love to share that passion with our clients, and we have these art classes, and the pride that they had to put their artwork here, and they have their own gallery, was just amazing. These sun things in the window they created with simple resources that we collect, but just the profits to be able to fund these things, like we scrape. If we have to color on cups to make art, we color on cups to make art, just to keep these guys busy and fulfilled, but it means so much to them. I mean, I couldn't pay half this stuff up here, but they did it. Direction from their staff. And it's so meaningful to be able to fund programs for them, like once a week yoga. We go to Zumba down at the health department. Just things like that. It's so meaningful that they would never have the opportunity to do without us. Mm-hmm. Even the skills of learning to tie their own shoes independently is just huge. And without our staff, their dedication, we wouldn't be able to do this, because it probably isn't their paychecks that are keeping them here doing this day in and day out. I mean, Nadine's like my Howard mom. You know, I began working there when I was 18, and she's going on 40 years of employment doing what she does, and it's wonderful.
I've worked here longer than she's been alive.
It's true.
Thank you so much. As you can see, we are very proud of the work we do at UCS and proud of our partnerships we have created to best respond to our community. We work together because we know that we can't do this alone. And so thank you again for being here this morning and supporting us and those we serve. I'd like to now hear from our panel about the work that they do to help support our communities. Yeah?
Yeah, I just want to add one other thing that I think is epitomizes the attitude from the top down at UCS. Lorna's highlighted for you a lot of our successes this year, which means to say that we've had a lot of failures. And one of the
I usually don't point those out.
And one of the things that I want to point out is that any person in the community or any client at UCS can write a complaint. It goes unfiltered to Lorna, who then sends it back to division directors, who come back to staff, who come back to a question to the client to find out whether or not their concern was answered, or to understand why the answer was something they didn't like. But it closes the circle. And it's not that everybody likes it, but I just think that that's a very important piece of allowing people to come back and have a voice in change.
So Brian, do you want to?
Just introduction. Okay, sure. Well, thanks for having me. I'm Brian Campion, one of the two state senators for Bennington County and Wilmington. Thanks for having us. I have to say, there seems to be a lot of great news coming out of here. Very positive, which I really appreciate. I also appreciate everything that everybody's doing with regard to our community, and I agree, I believe it was Lorna, you were the one that mentioned that Bennington feels like it's on this tipping point toward the positive. I think it's the Putnam Project, it's our educational institutions, it's all of you. And so it's an exciting time to be in Bennington, and I'm grateful to everybody here for all the work that all of you have done on the ground. So a couple things. I serve on Natural Resources and Energy as a committee. I also serve on Finance. So Natural Resources and Energy, we oversee any kind of environmental policy, energy policy that the state might implement. In the afternoon, I serve on finance, which is responsible largely for raising funds in any kind of tax policy, as well as some energy policy that the state might consider. One of the things that I do want to mention that I feel quite excited about is, I don't know how many of you heard the governor's State of the State address and his commitment to working with us toward a universal after-school program. And I think that's an incredible, incredible opportunity for this state and for everybody here locally. One of the things the governor said, and I agree completely with him, this is an equity issue. We all know families that can pay the extra few thousand a year or more to make sure that their children have access to after-school care when their parents are at work. These are supplemental educational opportunities, these are social opportunities for students, and they really, really help raise the bar in terms of what students can do in their lives. So the fact that he's talking about this and willing to partner with the legislature, I think is really exciting. I think it's a big opportunity in our community. A lot of young people we know who don't have those dollars go home to sometimes an empty house. And again, don't get that enrichment that others have. So I'm excited about that. I really commend the governor for his work there. I too am concerned, I think I'll speak for everybody here, with regard to the Brattleboro retreat and its transition, whatever that might end up being. I have to say though, coming here this morning and hearing what you're all doing, particularly for young people with the program, I believe they, and I'm sorry, I forgot your name already. Kaya mentioned, where you have you're working toward keeping young people and others out of the emergency room for these kinds of situations, mental health situations. That's a big step, and I know that that kind of money doesn't just fall on people's laps. It's a lot of grant writing, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of relationship building. So thank you for all of that. I greatly appreciate it. And happy to be here to answer questions. I do need to leave a little bit before 9:30, but again, excited to be here and grateful to all of you.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah. I'm Dick Sears, State Senator, along with Senator Campion for Bennington County and Wilmington. I serve as Chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and I'm a member of the Appropriations Committee. And I want to thank you for having me. And I share Brian's enthusiasm about this, but I'm also want to say how concerned I am about the conversation about money. I mean, somebody mentioned PUP program sounds like a great program, but you're going to need additional funds. We talked a little bit about the pay for mental health people working at UCS. At the same time, we see level funding throughout government, and that level funding is a cut. We have a governor who's talking about expanding after-school programs. We have a legislature talking about expanding programs left and right. And all of them are well-intentioned, but all of them cost money. And if you're not willing to increase revenue in some way, I don't know how you do all this without shortchanging. And that's what the heart of the Brattleboro retreat issue is, quite frankly, it's money. And how much money does it cost to keep a shambles of a mental health system alive? And I'm talking about now the residential portion of the mental health system. We have a Middlesex facility. If I told you the daily cost at Woodside is $1 million a person right now. $1 million.
Daily?
Excuse me, yearly. But we're rivaled with that at Middlesex in the $350,000 to $700,000 range. The retreat's similar. So we need to find alternatives, and you're doing a good job at doing that, but it really concerns me that we live in this dream world where there's going to be all these new programs, and there isn't the funds to keep the ones we got going. So I'm going to try to do my best on that. I will also give you another example, where there is revenue, where there is the possibility of revenue, is, and I know some of you don't like the idea of a tax on regulated marijuana, but that could do it. Now, on March 1st of 2019, the Senate sent the House a bill. Your income from that would be in a $20 to $50 million a year range. That money could be used to deal with an opiate crisis that I would suspect that a lot of the young people who are in your PUC program and other difficulties are because of an opiate crisis. Personally, I think that's one revenue source. There are other revenue sources that we could look at, but it's disappointing to me that the House has not acted yet. Whether you agree with it or don't agree with it, at least get the ball rolling. It also, there are an awful lot of people making an awful lot of money selling a drug that's not regulated, and they're not paying taxes on that income. So that's one point I would make. Another point, in the Senate Judiciary Committee, we're trying to deal with the forensic population, and that's a group of people who have committed crimes but are not guilty by reason of insanity. Currently, we don't have a facility for that group, so they're mixed in with your other groups on a residential basis for who knows how long. We're looking at some alternatives there, but I must say that that's also part of our crisis. Also, in dealing, with one family, and I don't want to get into their little details, but let's just say that this young man aged out of DCF at age 18. When he aged out, he was in a specialized program. He's been in the Rutland Correctional Facility since October, early October, because we don't have the programs available for him or programs that his family feels would work with him. This is a failure of a system, folks. And he may not be the right person. I don't want to get into names or the details, but it's symbolic of a problem that we have. I don't think jail is the right place for this person. But then what is? And how do we keep the community safe? But it's a mental health problem. It's not a criminogenic problem, although he acted out in an assaulted behavior. So we need to continue that. That's some of my dedication for the next 5 months will be on that. But in the Senate Appropriations Committee, we did increase salaries for folks that work in your system. And we'll continue to try to keep that going. But again, the governor and others can talk all they want about new programs, but you gotta have the money to pay.
May I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So back to the PUC program for a second. So you are looking for additional funding for that?
Yes.
You are? Okay.
Yep. So
So the grants that you receive are just sort of to get things going?
Right, so the innovation grant from One Care was for a pilot program. And so we received $125,000 for a year to do a pilot to determine whether or not something like this would help, of course, provide better care, but also decrease costs.
Yeah.
And so if it's successful, One Care may fund it or may look to replicate it in the states. But right now it's up in the air about whether or not we'll receive additional funds.
I think, Dick's committee looks at this, it's what kind of investment can we make early on that will save us money in the long run, and that's, one of the reasons I think the state did early childhood, took those kinds of steps to, advance, so young people would be reading at the right grade level, prevent, tutorials, those kinds of things.
Right.
So I'm glad you're looking at it.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
And I think one of the things that I'd comment on is, excuse me, Brian, is about buying that building. I think that we have a great system of care that if we can invest into that already established system of care, then you're gonna be better off than buying new programs. It's kind of like the shiny penny that some people who are funding programs are like, oh, well, we gotta buy this over here, build this over here because this is the new latest thing, when in fact, enhancing what we have, particularly community-based, will decrease expenses later, so.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Heidi, for hosting this. This is my 18th year, and I appreciate what United Counseling Services do. It's really enlightening and brings home, when we go up to Montpelier, of the impacts that our decisions have on your budget. But I serve on the Transportation Committee in the House, and it's a little bit the calm before the storm. The governor's going to be releasing his budget, I believe, next week. So we'll see, the devil's are in the details of where his priorities lie within the transportation budget. But I think the key that might be correlation to you guys is public transit. I think we're really trying to invest in that, and then also invest in electric vehicles. We're trying to amp up on that issue to help the climate change, which is another probably big policy piece that will probably come before our committee. Is called the TCI, the Transportation Climate Initiative Program. And this is a compact between the New England states and the Mid-Atlantic states to try to curb the emissions that are polluted in the air. And so that's starting to roll out, and we're going to see what that looks like. But at the end of the day, it's most likely it's going to be some type of tax on the gasoline is what I've been hearing, and that's going to be reinvested back into the public transit, electric vehicles, something that's environmentally friendly. But I concur with Brian. The governor gave his state of the state last week, and the one of the things that stood out was the universal after-school program. I believe that's a great idea, but as Senator Sear says, the devils are in the detail, and we've yet to see how that's going to be funded. And so I look forward to hearing the budget presentation next week, and we can go from there. But as far as issues that are before our body, or will be shortly, because they just got sent to the committee conference, are paid family leave and minimum wage. Last year, the House passed $15 an hour, and we were going to get to that over 6 years. The House had a little bit of a different take. I think they were at 12 and change over 2 years. We couldn't concur, so we got sent to a committee conference, and so they're working out those differences. But at the end of the day, that will be coming back, and I'm sure that will have an impact on your budget of your salary. So it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully that's done, wrapped up in a timely manner. And paid family leave is obviously another big issue, but I would imagine those will be for the House and the Senate within the next couple of weeks, because those are a priority for leadership to get that done. So those are some of the things that are going to be first and foremost in front of us, and then we'll just have to wait to see how it unfolds next week with the budget. So that's it for me.
Thanks, Tim.
I'm Jim Carroll. I'm a selectman for the town of Bennington, also a state rep, and it really doesn't pay to come in third because everybody steals your thunder. But to address what Senator Sears said with respect to cannabis, and what a wonderful funding source it would be for the state. Right now it sits in the Government Ops Committee, and it's a tremendously complicated process to get it done, doing it responsibly. In addition to that, Tim mentioned the minimum wage. I sit on the Commerce Committee, and that came before us right at the last day of session. And the Senate threw back to us. We wanted to, by I think it was 2024, to have it up to $15 an hour. And that's still, they call it a livable wage, but man, it's got to be really tight. But the Senate threw back to us to push it out to 2030, which I think, to my mind, would have been meaningless. To wait 10 years. nevertheless, go back to another point that Brian made with respect to, the after-school programs. It all comes down to funding. And if we can get cannabis through, we can do a lot. Here's something that you should, for those of you who are residents of Bennington, through our entire delegation, we pushed through a charter change that will call for a local option tax. It'll be a penny on the dollar. And we, through the select board, have projected that if we do include all three options, alcohol, rooms and meals, and retail, we'll generate $1.8 million a year. Manchester had the local option tax in 1993. It started, but I spoke with the town manager of Manchester, and from 2007 to 2018, they've generated $16.6 million over that time period. And most of it has gone toward the reduction in property taxes. And that's what we intend to do. In addition to that, we could set aside money. We had to float a bond for a ladder truck this year, $1.1 million. And over a 10-year period, had we had the local option tax, we could have set aside $100,000 a year and just written a check when we needed it, or for other expenses. So what that local option tax will allow the select board to do is some latitude, so that in the case where UCS needs some funding, we'll have some of that in reserve. So anyway, as Tim, Dick, and Brian have pointed out, it always comes down to funding. And nobody likes taxes, nobody. But it's how we get the funding among the places where we get funding sources. That's it.
Thanks, Jim. Can I just add something quick? Yeah. Talking about the funding piece, as important as it is, the reason that, we feel that raising minimum wage would be important is that most people leave their jobs because they're not making enough money, right? So, if you want good care, good quality care, you want to have people that have been here for years because they really know the people that we're working with. One of the main issues that we have is they can't afford to get by on the income that they currently get working in this, particularly in this field. There's a saying, we don't do it for the income, we do it for the outcome, which is true, but at the end of the day, we all have families and people that we need to support. I guess looking at the funding could be important, because if you pay people well to do their job, it's going to affect the people that you serve in the community, right? So if they're getting good care at an early age, talking about like the childhood of the after-school programs, the rec center, learning good nutrition and so forth, that affects who they grow up to be, right? And I did a thesis once on DCF versus like where people are now, and it's like every 20 years we go through a drug epidemic. And this is just from what I've researched. It seems to me it's like, you get the parents that have the drug problem, and then you have the child that grows up in that environment, which then they don't receive the proper care, and then they grow up to need, a lot of services that like we have here. So I guess where I'm going with that is, if you take care of poverty, in the end, you're taking care of everything. And I get that money is not there to be handed out. But I'm thinking long term, if we start paying people, affordable wage where they can get by, they can survive, and then they can give their children that proper care early on, then we're going to see better results in the end. Because they're going to grow up to have, a better chance at being successful with school and graduating and getting jobs, versus, if you live in poverty and in an environment where there's drugs, or people don't know how to get by, so they sell drugs, or they do drugs. I just think in the end it's all a circle, and we got to start from square one. And I think it's to do with how the children are being raised, and how do we start with that.
You just reminded me something that I was part of in the Commerce Committee, and it was a workforce development bill that the governor signed into law. And we're still having a tough time getting it out there, but part of the law that was signed is that we provided for a bunch of different certifications. What comes chiefly to mind is a CDL license, commercial driver's license. You can get up to half the cost of funding, which is about $5,000 through the state, ESAC. In addition to that, for these additional certifications, and particularly the CDL, you can collect unemployment while you're getting that certification. So that, you know, people, for many people, they feel like, I can't afford to take time off to get that certification because, number one, I can't pay for it, and I can't afford to miss work. However, I wish I had a better list of the different certifications. However, CCV here in Bennington does have a list. So for those clients of yours who might be interested in expanding their credentials, it would be a good place to take them.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's true. Dave?
Yeah, good morning, thank you. I'm David Durfee. I represent Shaftesbury and Glastonbury. I don't have any Glastonbury today. Yeah, and small slice of Sunderland as well. And I'm serving my second year, first term. And I'm on the healthcare committee, and I'll talk a little bit about my perspective on that. I wanted to just echo what we've all said. Thank you for having us. Thank you for sharing your stories. They're very meaningful. Those of you who didn't share your stories have stories, I know, and just being able to look out and see your faces is terrific. So thank you for that. I was particularly excited to hear about the PUC program. It wasn't something that I was aware of. And one of the first things that we heard last year when we started our work in the committee, the healthcare committee, was the crisis in the emergency departments with not enough beds in the hospitals and patients being parked there for long periods of time, and it's particularly tough to accept when there's children who are being pulled out of school. So it sounds very encouraging. The piece of One Care has been in the news a lot lately, and there's concern whether it's going to prove to be effective or not in controlling costs. But one piece of that is programs like this that are designed to not just shift the dollars around, but reduce the spending. So if we can, as was said, if we can keep people, save the emergency room cost, obviously up front makes a lot of sense. So I look forward to hearing more about that. I'll say also just in general that the healthcare committee has a real, it covers mental health, and there's a real level of expertise on the committee and a real understanding, I think, of the issues. The chair of the committee worked in the equivalent agency, UCS in Addison County, ran it for several years, so he understands the system, as do others on the committee. We've heard already this year from the commissioner on mental health. She's testified twice, I think, before our committee. Once on the situation with the retreat, and we've gotten assurances that the retreat is not going away. There's obviously too much at stake there. There will have to be changes to make it financially viable, but it's understood that it's critical to the system. I wasn't going to talk about tax and regulation, but I will say that I work in Williamstown, about 100 yards from the cannabis shop that's been operating there since last spring. And I just read that they've reported to the town of Williamstown on their first year, or not quite first year, but I guess the calendar year numbers, and 20% of their business is coming from Vermonters. So whatever concerns, and I'm sure there are legitimate concerns about the impact that moving to that system would have on the state, to a certain extent, it's already happening. They're just driving down the road. There's a second, there's a license the town is either already approved or about to approve a second shop right across the street from the existing one in Williamstown. And a third one possibly going in just over the line from Pownell. We talked a little bit about minimum wage and paid family leave. I'm very optimistic that both of those will pass in some form soon. And I'm particularly excited about the parental leave piece. Looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Representative Mary Morrissey from Bennington. This is my 24th year serving in the legislature, and I'm very pleased to be before you once again. First and foremost, thank you for the amazing work you do in this community. I don't know how you do it every day. It's pretty incredible, so thank you. I sit on the Institutions and Corrections Committee in the House, and we have a very full plate this year, as you can imagine, with all the issues that some have been discussed before I'm speaking now. There is the discussion, and Dick is very well aware of the Woodside piece because of the expense of keeping that facility open. And right now we're hearing there's technically on a given day, and it varies, that there can be as few as 5 individuals in the program. My concern with the closure, and it's probably needed, but it's always felt that our communities can pick up the slack. We're a facility for some of the severest needs individuals. It's a safe, secure place. I'm not sure if we have the resources in the community to deal with that level. So I would want to be hearing very much from all of you what our capacity is in the community, in the county, to deal with those issues for our youth. That's very important. We also have discussing the Middlesex secure residential unit that has been has outlived its time frame. It was supposed to be a kind of a short-term fix for secure residential, and it needs to be closed. Very inadequate. So that's another issue that we're looking at. We're also discussing, as you have heard in the news, about the Chittenden Women's Correctional Facility and this very serious issues that we're dealing with the alleged sexual assault and drug issues right within those complexes. Trying to get our arms around what we can do. Dick, who sits on Corrections Oversight Committee, could speak even probably more to this. But we need to, as a state, also look at what our correctional system is going to look like for the future. We have so many antiquated facilities, and so what does this look like? What is the right fit? Of course, I'm always, as you heard me probably say last year, because we're in southern Vermont, so many of the facilities that treat our residents are up north. So it's a very difficult process for families to be able to, go to these facilities, support their loved ones, and so I'm always advocating for if we can do things, if they're more centrally located in the state. My other concern with all of these issues are, and we spoke about it last week, when we were talking about all of these various issues, is that we can build, but unless we have a workforce to fill these facilities, we're going nowhere. We saw it when we built the new mental health facility in Berlin. We couldn't open that facility for months because we did not have the wonderful people like we have in this room, and to the levels and degrees of being able to provide those treatments. So, I asked that very question in the open hearing, and they all looked at me going, "You're absolutely right. We need the boots on the ground to deliver what we can't say we're going to deliver, or we're setting ourselves up for failure right out of the gate." Brattleboro Retreat, again, very concerning to all of us, because I think it is technically, quote, our southern Vermont kind of facility that we look to try to get our folks into. I think we will all look to work our darndest to make sure that facility stays and is up and running, and however we can do that in the best possible way. Dick spoke about another great concern is looking at some of the folks within our correctional system. And Dick and I are very aware of the case that you talked about, the young man that aged out of his services and unfortunately committed an assault, and to this day is sitting in Rutland Correctional Center. And that's not a place for someone in this person's community just to be in. So we've got to find some ways around that. In the governor's address last week, I have to say I was probably very disappointed that we did not talk about the opioid issue. These issues, as you know in this room, don't go away. It's not a one-year fancy statement of we're going to save the opioid, save folks who are on opioids and the treatment. I'm concerned that we've lost a little bit of sight of the reality of the issues and the needs that we need to get, to a better place with dealing with those who are addicted. My committee, because we're on institutions and corrections, we are looking at some ideas on residential treatment housing and all of that, which will pertain to our areas. Again, though, as everyone has said, the tough nut to crack on all of this is the money resources for all of this. We have to look at the priorities, and I'm sure all of you in this room could say each area that you all work in is a priority, so we will do our darndest.
I'm Nelson Brownell. I represent Bennington 1, which is Woodford and Pownell. I want to thank you all for having me, and I also will thank you for the job that you do. I think people like you, people don't realize that the people on the street who don't have homes and all the rest that you have to deal with is, as this shows, very difficult to do it sometimes. And it's good to see that people step up and do that. So thank you very much. I serve GovOps. This is my second year. The marijuana bill was in our committee, and it will come back. Basically, the way the bill works is we pushed it out last year and went to appropriations in the House. And as of last week, I heard it was in wildlife. And I'm not sure why it's in wildlife, but I heard it was in there. That's where I heard it was last week. So we're waiting, and it'll come back. But basically, what will happen is that will get out this year. I hear around the House and the Senate both that there's a big push on, so it should work. Certainly, minimum wage and family leave is the other two big ones. I'm not sure how they're going to look because they both are in conference. But I think, again, that both the House and the Senate wants to see something done there, so that'll be out. The other thing I guess is, a lot has already been said that I could repeat, but living in Pownell, I'm not far from Williamstown. So I do agree, and I think Dick said this good up at the Capitol. We are letting money escape us by going to Massachusetts. And we need money here. And if we don't pass this bill soon, you know, it'll be New York, New Hampshire. We have to learn how to regulate it. We have to learn how to test for it. So, you know, it'll be driving under the influence. We need to know how to manage that and so forth. And there's some issues with that, but I think we're getting a handle on it. And I do think that bill will be out and there'll be some revenue. How that revenue is spent will certainly be a debate both in the House and the Senate before it's done. But there should be something there. There was one other thing that you spoke about that I think is very important. It's the elderly. As you know how our population is in the state of Vermont, and they tell you every day, we're getting more and more people of elderly state, a little older, and very few of the young. And I think that you're going to find, as you probably already have, that a lot of us as we get older seem to be more troubled than the young because of what we want or do and can't do anymore. And we get frustrated with that. And it's people like you who will have to deal with that. So I guess say that the other things that we've been talking about is FOIA in our committee, which is the release of information to the public. You know, there's a big push on to be open government as much as you can and so forth. But as you know, medical records and some of the other stuff are they shouldn't be released. And what we have is a lot of smaller towns in our state that really don't understand what can be redacted or not. So when people request information, they try to be as open government as possible because the law says you have to be. And they're going to be releasing stuff that probably shouldn't be released. I'm not sure how we're going to deal with that, but there's certainly a need to be as open as possible, but at the same time protecting those that you need to protect. And that was one of the last things that I heard was the state's, state's attorney, but it was also the Secretary of State that came in, because one is very strong and as much release as possible, and the other one thinks it should be controlled a little better. So it was an interesting discussion before I left this last week. So I guess I'll leave it there, even though there's other things that comes around.
Thank you, Madison. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.
This morning. It's been wonderful. I'd like to open it up to comments or questions.
Can I also add that we are really excited about the possibility of offering after school within this program here too. So that has always been one of the pieces that we've been looking at, and we hope in that community space we can offer after school pieces there too. And we wanted this to be the greenest, healthiest, whatever the term is for buildings that you can build. And we haven't figured out how to fund it yet, but we want solar to be part of this. We want EV to be part of this. We hope that there'll be in the parking areas some charging stations along those lines. So we, see this as a building that's really part of many of the different initiatives that you talked about.
The governor's gonna, I think, $1 million plus the charging stations.
Yeah.
That's a big push on his end, and it was ours last year too. So
Betsy, I think, sorry to interrupt, you would agree that the after-school program does work, whether intentionally or not, to combat opioids.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
giving young people something to do. And again, I think we all know what it's like not having anything to do, whether you're, have a good, healthy mental state or not. It can be a real struggle. So I think it's a good step in that direction.
And this was over a 5-year, I think,
Right,
plan.
I believe it
This
was.
wasn't like it's
Yeah.
gonna happen next
It's
year.
good preventative medicine, I
Right,
think,
yeah.
for that issue and others.
So on top of the after-school program, because I know it's a big topic so far on the panel, I have to say my daughter actually attends Molly Stark, which already offers a free after-school program. And she's a kindergartner, so it's my first experience with her there. But it's been like absolutely fabulous, I have to say. They keep her there to 4:30, they give them snacks. But she also helps like foster a sense of community with the kids. I know she takes a lot more pride in her school. She wants to do a lot more activities there. And then one of the activities she does is called the Mystery Bus, where they take them every Thursday and they go to some place in the community. And it also helps revenue, because every time we drive by one now, we have to stop and go visit them. So whether it's like the Heavenly Cow, we've gone to the monument, they do such a great program, but my daughter remembers them every time we drive by. Oh, there's a Heavenly Cow. Oh, there's a library, we need to stop. So I think, it really is a valuable program. It's nice to hear that you're considering it, and the revenue sources. As a taxpayer in this town, as a homeowner, it's always great to hear that we have different funding sources as well too. So just from a different perspective from a parent, I thought it'd be nice to hear how it does work out currently. So
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I normally speak at this, and I'll stand in the front so that you don't have to turn your neck.
Oh, get a little closer.
I don't want to get too close to Dick. That's the thing. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, I want to say a couple things. I love United Counseling Service. I love the work that you do in the community. I love working with the hospital. Unfortunately, Tom D had to leave and is not going to hear what I have to say. The two ladies in the back working in the emergency department, we have a wonderful working relationship with the hospital and the ED. Yes, unfortunately, we do bring kids up to the ED. From time to time, we bring adults there too, because we're certainly lacking the ability to help people with mental health issues. Out in the parking lot, I did mention to Dick on the way in that we need to do a little bit more for people that have mental health issues. It's really not a police problem, right? To go someplace and have to put someone in wrist restraints and then drag them up to the ED because they're not taking their meds or whatever, we shouldn't be doing that. And I'm not saying that we do it every day, because we don't, but people get hurt. Officers get hurt, people get hurt because of mental health issues. And we really need to focus on mental health issues. Again, we have a great working relationship with UCS and with the hospital and with other institutions. And I am super psyched about what's going on Gage Street. We drive by there on a regular basis, and if you do, you can see the progress that's taking place. And we're looking forward to that, because we need more for our youth to do in this community. There is absolutely no doubt. Bennington is the hub, and David, whether you're from Shaftesbury or Nelson, you're from Powell or Woodford or wherever, everybody comes to Bennington, right? So not to defend what Jim said about that 1% tax or whatever, that's absolutely essential to the town of Bennington, because everybody comes to Bennington for services. We got to plow our roads, right, so people can get to their appointments here. We have to plow our roads so that people can get to Walmart or Home Depot or whatever. So there's a lot of people that depend on the town of Bennington, because we have the hospital, because we have UCS, because we provide all the services. The state office complex is here. So you have to support the town of Bennington, and at the same time involve the police, involve the fire department, involve the rescue squad, use our local representatives. If we all sit back and complain, we're not accomplishing anything. Call these people. They actually are very helpful. I, contrary to popular belief, am very helpful as well as Lieutenant Grandy. And we really do try to bring about positive change in our community. The police department Copsicle program is going to launch soon. We met a little bit of resistance on that because we're giving out popsicles and tooth decay and obesity and whatever. But the issue is we're going to have healthy options as well. But unless we bring about new programs and we engage people in these programs and we get people to know the police, other than having to bring them to their UCS appointments or up to the hospital or whatever, right? Then we're not the friendly police, but we really are. And we're going to launch our Copsicle program. We're going to give out pizza, not just popsicles, just so you all know. And the bottom line is we're going to have a fruity, what do you call those things? A fruit popsicle or whatever it is, in lieu of just a sugary popsicle, because it's important that we have these healthy choices. So that, all kidding aside, we'll end my piece on this, is that we all have to make good decisions. And sometimes we need to enlist the help of our representatives to make things happen, and we need to enlist the help of each other so that we can make positive things happen in this community. Working together is what's going to make it happen, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, and thanks, Cam, for coming today. I want to echo what you just said, Paul, around our relationship with the police department. We've been very fortunate over the last, few years since I've been in this position to have a really collaborative and supportive relationship with the local police department. And whether that's supporting our Superhero 5K and having police help with traffic, and Cam came in to talk with all the volunteers about how to control traffic, and what not to do if somebody's yelling at you, to the police officers running with the kids in the Kid Dash. That's relationship with community. That's helping kids understand that the police are friendly and supportive and for them. And the many other things that you do every day for UCS to support our clients is really quite wonderful, which is why we gave you the community award at our annual luncheon, because we believe that you believe in your community, and we really appreciate the work that you do. Dick?
Yeah, I would like to echo what Paul Doucette and Jim Carroll said about the local option tax. It's important. You're going to hear a lot of negative about it, but I've represented Manchester for 28 years. What they've done with that money is unbelievable. What Wilmington has done with their money, it is an important step forward for Bennington, I think. I'll certainly be voting for it, and I hope all of you will too. It really is it will make a difference. And not just in lowering property taxes, but having the flexibility to do some of the things that we've always wanted to do. And I know Wilmington and Manchester put aside a certain amount of their local option tax for economic development purposes, which actually in the long run helps those local businesses that are concerned about increasing a 1% tax. Go over to Colony, go over to Albany, see the number of Vermont cars, and they're going to be paying a higher sales tax than you will in Bennington.
I want to just add one thing to what Dick said. In the conversation that I had with John O'Keefe, the town manager in Manchester, have you been up to Manchester and seen their recreation park?
Mm-hmm.
He told me, and that's primarily funded from the local option tax. They have an indoor skating rink. Within the last several years, they put in a skate park. And the town manager told me that they went over and did some informal polling, and families from as far north as Montreal and Burlington are coming to Manchester to use that facility, and they're coming from Albany. They're coming from Western Massachusetts. We could do that. We could do that here, have competitions. And here's the added benefit. Those kids, probably, most of them don't have a license. So mom and dad are bringing them, and they're probably dragging along their siblings, and I'll bet you they get hungry. And they go into local restaurants, and they have something to eat. It's a benefit to, it'll be a benefit to the entire town. It'll give us so much flexibility to do a lot of good. $1.8 million is projected per year. That's it.
Anybody else comments? Yes, Beth?
I'll try to be quick. There are two programs that I think kind of tie in with the after school and also what we're doing at the rec center that I think are of note. And one is the Child Care Financial Assistance Program. We saw investments this past year into increasing the rates for infants and toddlers, and that has supported what we're able to do in terms of expanding capacity for those infants and toddlers with the new rec center and also in our existing programs. The other thing that pot of money pays for is after school for children who qualify. So when we talk about where's the money coming from, that's an existing pot of money that I think can be looked at, so that, you know, I am totally in favor of after school. Betsy and I have been talking about how we could expand after school services in our community for several years, and I'm really excited to be able to explore that possibility with the rec center. I also have a 10-year-old daughter. I can pay for after school, and I would happily do that. So trying to find a program that is free for all, I don't think is necessarily needed. You know, there are many of us who can pay our share and support more money going into that child care financial assistance pot to support the folks who really need it. So I would look to that program and support that as much as possible versus creating new programs. Universal Pre-K is another initiative that I think is probably coming back to you for approval and review sometime soon. That has also supported our programming and ongoing operations, and could be looked at as a model for after school, right? Identifying partners, pre-qualified partners in the community so that parents have choice. You know, the after school programs don't have to be offered in-house, but Universal Pre-K, especially with the SVSU's model, has been wildly successful in our area. We work with several different supervisory unions, and the SVSU has just done an amazing job. So I think supporting those ongoing programs is just as important as creating new ones.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, thank you so much for being with us this morning. We talked a lot about PUC, and I'm really excited about the enthusiastic response from you all too. We're very proud of that. There is an open house,
22nd.
January 22nd from 4 to 7 at 314 Dewey. I know Paul is coming early and bringing 2 shifts, all to come in and check it out. So anybody's invited to come and take a look at the program. It's really exciting. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy your day. Thank you.